What if the person you humiliate today controls your fate tomorrow? That was the lesson hidden inside this moment, because the result came fast and brutally. The billionaire woman who believed she owned the sky found herself quietly cornered, exposed and humbled in front of an entire cabin. Confidence didn't shatter through shouting or confrontation, but through something far more powerful: procedure, patience, and dignity. She had looked at the flight attendant as if she were invisible, snapped at her, questioned her competence, and spoke with the careless tone of someone who had never been told no. And yet minutes later, the balance of power flipped. Service slowed. The atmosphere changed. Authority stepped in. Her name, her seat number, her behavior all calmly recorded. No insults were thrown back at her, no revenge was taken, and that's what made it devastating. The method was simple and precise. The flight attendant didn't react emotionally, didn't argue, and didn't try to prove her worth. You followed protocol, trusted the system, and let professionalism do the work that anger never could. By staying composed, she forced the billionaire woman to confront something she had long avoided: the reality that power isn't loud and control isn't cruel. The humiliation didn't come from being shouted down. It came from realizing that money couldn't override rules, respect, or consequences. Surrounded by passengers who watched the exchange unfold, the billionaire woman felt something unfamiliar: small. In that silent moment, she understood that true authority doesn't need to announce itself, it simply acts. And that leaves one question lingering in the air long after the flight lands. If dignity can dismantle arrogance so effortlessly, who really holds the power when ego walks into the room? Can wealth protect you when your character is bankrupt? The result answered that question without mercy, because the billionaire woman discovered that money, influence, status mean nothing once respect is removed from the equation. Her expectations collapsed the moment the airline stepped in and treated her not as an elite guest, but as a passenger bound by the same rules as everyone else. There were no special favors, no whispered apologies, no bending of policy to soothe her ego. Outcome was clear. Her authority dissolved, and the illusion that wealth could buy immunity vanished in front of witnesses. The method behind this moment was precise and unavoidable. The flight attendant didn't challenge her wealth or mock her status. Instead, she relied on something far stronger: structure. By documenting the behavior, escalating it through official channels, and allowing airline policy to take control, she removed emotion from the equation entirely. This wasn't a battle of personalities. The billionaire woman had believed respect could be demanded through intimidation. Respect is only sustained through conduct. When she tried to use her money as leverage, she learned a hard truth: systems exist to neutralize power when it becomes abusive. That realization stung more than any insult could have, because it exposed a weakness she couldn't hide without decency. Wealth becomes noise, and that leaves a haunting question behind. If money can't save you when your behavior betrays you, what exactly does it protect you from? Why is calm more terrifying than anger? The result made that question impossible to ignore, because the billionaire woman didn't feel attacked. She felt exposed, diminished, and deeply unsettled by the flight attendant's silence. There was no argument to win, no raised voice to overpower, no emotional reaction to dismiss as weakness. Instead, the cabin filled with an uncomfortable stillness. And in that quiet space, the weight of her own behavior became impossible to escape. The humiliation didn't come from confrontation, came from realizing that nothing she said could provoke a response. What made this moment unforgettable wasn't authority, it was discipline. The flight attendant chose restraint over retaliation, understanding that calm strips aggressors of their stage. By maintaining professionalism, neutral tone, and unwavering composure, she forced the billionaire woman to sit with her own words, unchallenged and unmasked. Without an emotional opponent, the cruelty looked exactly like what it was: unnecessary. And small passengers noticed. Eyes shifted, sympathy quietly realigned. In that silence, the billionaire woman faced something unfamiliar: accountability without drama. The calm didn't defend itself, and that's what made it devastating. because it revealed that dignity doesn't need permission to stand tall. And that leaves a question echoing long after the moment passed. When silence exposes your flaws more clearly than anger ever could, what does that say about the power you thought you had? What happens when the audience stops siding with wealth and starts siding with humanity? The result answered that with brutal clarity, because the billionaire woman suddenly found herself isolated, no longer protected by her status, and quietly judged by the very people she assumed would be impressed by her power. The cabin's energy shifted. Conversations paused. Eyes observed without admiration. In that moment, she wasn't seen as influential or important. She was seen as unfair. The support she expected never came, and that absence spoke louder than any confrontation. The method behind this turning point was subtle but unstoppable. Her repeated disrespect toward the flight attendant created discomfort that spread through the cabin, while the attendant's consistent professionalism earned unspoken respect. No speeches were needed, no accusations announced. The contrast alone was enough. As authority figures intervened, passengers mentally chose sides, and they didn't choose money, they chose decency. The billionaire woman realized too late that influence depends on perception. And perception collapses the moment empathy disappears. Once the crowd emotionally withdrew, her confidence had nowhere to stand. That silent judgment carried a heavier weight than any formal reprimand, because it revealed a truth she couldn't ignore. Power without humanity invites isolation. And that leaves one unsettling question behind. If people stop believing in your character, how long can they continue believing in your status? What's the real price of looking down on another human being? The result made that question painfully clear. Because the billionaire woman didn't just lose a comfortable flight, she lost control of the narrative. Respect in the room, and a piece of her public image that money could never fully repair. What began as a moment of arrogance turned into a defining memory. One where she was remembered not for her success, but for her cruelty. The consequence wasn't dramatic or explosive. It was quiet, lasting, and far more damaging. The method that led to this outcome was rooted in her own choices. By assuming her status placed her above accountability, she underestimated humility and overestimated power. The flight attendant's disciplined response, following rules, maintaining dignity, and refusing to personalize the insult, transformed the interaction into a lesson rather than a fight. That restraint ensured the focus stayed on behavior, not emotion, and behavior is what systems judge. In that moment, the billionaire woman faced a truth she had long avoided. Character is revealed not when things go your way, but when you believe you're untouchable. The memory of that flight would linger far longer than the embarrassment, because it carried a lesson that wealth cannot erase how you treat people. When you think they don't matter is exactly how the world learns who you are. And that leaves one final question echoing in the silence. If one careless moment can define you forever, what kind of legacy are your actions quietly building right now?